I searched and searched for an opening video. I couldn't find anything funny today. X is dead for funny videos. So you guys are just stuck with me and Patrick coming in right off the cuff like this. I'm not used to it. Patrick, we're going to Italy in 12 days, bro.
I feel terrible that we are the content now of the funny video. The pressure is on. Yeah.
12 days we're going to Italy, man.
I think I said out on Twitter that I wanted a photographer to shoot from several angles, watching your jaw slowly make its way, hopefully not doing any damage to the pristine marble of St. Peter's Basilica. The more photos you see of Italy, the way I put it is you're priming your pump for the real thing. And no matter how overstated you sound to people who have never been there before, once that person gets there for the first time, all of it is understatement.
Yeah. My wife's just been like Googling everything because Allie sent me the email.
Yep.
Like of the full itinerary now. And my wife's just been every night. She's like, this is where we're staying. Can you believe we're going here? Can you believe we're going? I'm like really, really excited. Do we have room left? Can we squeeze one more in?
You know what? We do. We almost had a college age girl who's getting married and she just decided it wasn't gonna work. But a member of our True North community and his wife are coming. That just got launched today. So if you're listening, I know it sounds crazy, but every time I run a pilgrimage, there's always a small handful of 11th hour sinners to join the labor field. So maybe you can put the number up, Anthony. I don't have access to.
I think Rob has it in the banners. Hang on.
Okay, no problem.
Let me see.
I'm at Coffin Media.
Right.
You know what? I can.
I got it. Look at that.
All right.
I got it. So yeah, Allie's number is 775-340-6047. Her email is allie.ontheway@gmail.com. Do you have any kind of discount you could offer people if they do at the last minute?
Allie can work that out because we all want to be on the same page. Yeah, 11th hour discount's always going to happen, and additional discount for the single. If you come single, you have to pay extra, obviously, because you're not sharing the accommodations. So Allie will hook you up like a fish.
All right.
Yeah. So 775-340-6047. And it's Allie. That's ALLY .ontheway@gmail.com. You pretty much have to do it tonight or tomorrow because we have Italian partners that are now tabulating number of rooms in the hotel, number of people at the table at the restaurants, and so on. So we really kind of know. But we would love to have last minute people. Maybe you want to gift it to someone else who wants to go. This is a great way to begin Advent. We'll be there for the first 12 days of Advent. We're back on the 15th. All the festivities wrap up on the 14th, and we fly back from Florence to whatever country you're going to go back to. So
you know what I did? I booked a high-speed bullet train from Florence back to Rome.
Totally.
Like I'm excited to do that.
That's a really smart idea because it's absolutely unique. They don't exist here in America, and everything in Italy is different. My joke is everything in Italy, everything almost works. So hopefully there'll be no problems with your.
Well, the way the flights worked, it was if I left from Florence, I had to do a layover anyway, and they were charging me like an extra $800 for the flight. So it was like I could have left from Florence, but I would have had a layover and they would have charged me $800. So instead, I just booked round trip from Rome. And there's a bullet train that goes from Florence to Rome. It gets you from Florence to Rome in like an hour and a half. It's like a 5-hour car ride.
It is,
so
yeah.
The thing does like 200 miles an hour. I'm so excited to do.
That's
lightning
quick.
It's like the greatest way to end the trip. I'm like, we're going on a bullet train. This is so cool.
That's cool. So you're going straight to the Fiumicino Airport in Rome?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. I have no idea about any of this. I just, I'm hoping I booked it right.
Maybe this is the segue to what we're talking about. Those are racist Protestants.
Wait,
Eucharistic miracles. Eucharistic miracles.
Let me give the setup here. So
okay.
Patrick texts me and he goes, dude, let's do one more show before we go. And he says, so much American mega churches are white upper middle class outfits that pay lip service to racial justice, but have no or very few minority members. Where is the Catholic Church the only true diversity, since it is a plurality at its best, not ideological pluralism? We should talk about this. So I'm like, I have some thoughts on this too. So I told Rob what the theme was, and Rob's like, dude, I I can make a thumbnail that's definitely going to get clicks. He certainly did. So this was your idea. Rob did the thumbnail. I'm kind of just a passenger on this one, but I'm assuming you have some ideas that you wanted to get out.
The Ku Klux Klan sheets over the heads of the Protestants in the picture was a bit jarring to my ecumenical spirit.
It's either going to get killed in the algorithm or it's going to go crazy in the algorithm. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a nice dice roll. Well, the point is, this is what draws Protestants to Catholicism. Now, most Catholics say, oh, we kind of habitually say that Catholic means universal. In Greek, it doesn't technically mean universal. Kataholikos in Greek means of the whole. And the church has the action in the world the way yeast or leaven has in a dough of bread. So it transfers itself everywhere. So the whole loaf rises because of the presence of the yeast. So in every culture, the Catholic Church can flourish. It can flourish under democracy, laissez-faire capitalism. It can flourish under tyranny. It can flourish under communism. And it has baptized every human culture since the first century. Yeah. When the road, just the providential timing of the incarnation to match when the Romans built roads which allowed human traffic to traverse from one end of the Roman world to the other. It's just one of those things that Jesus came in the exact time. St. Paul says, in the fullness of time, God became woman, subject to a woman, subject to the law. And so every culture can be enculturated. And Catholics don't delete the prior existent culture. We baptize it, which is why there's an Egyptian, technically pagan obelisk in the center of the piazza at St. Peter's, which you and your wife are going to be viewing with your own eyes. Yeah. It's an example of the church taking, almost ransacking the paganism of Egypt and baptizing it, giving it a new Christian meaning. Wedding rings have a pagan origin from Rome. The Yuletide tree comes from pre-Christian Germany. So there's a lot of Christian traditions that have their roots, historically speaking, in a pagan context. So how this translates on a day-to-day basis is that every large city in the world, doesn't matter which country, at daily mass, you're going to have black, white, brown, Asian, Latino, billionaires sitting next to the homeless, because we're a monarchy in the Catholic Church. Jesus Christ is our king. We are all equal subjects to the king. So all the skin color, all the superficial differences literally mean nothing for Catholics, which is why I cannot identify with all this white, white replacement. I don't care about white, black, brown, yellow. I care about culture. I care about worldview.
I've caught crap on this show for saying I'm not so worried about like South American and Mexican Catholic immigrants coming into this country. I'm worried about Muslim immigrants coming in. I'm worried about gang members coming in, or the Haitian voodoo people coming in. Those are the cultures I worry about coming in here. But there's something interesting happens when the Protestant Reformation is going on in Europe and the New World gets discovered. Like this is all happening at one time. And it's the printing press gets invented, and it's the people in Europe think it's the end of the world. And while the end of the world in their side of the world is happening, you have second Christendom starts popping up in South and Central America. Now, when the Spanish conquistadors come, you get this beautiful mestizo culture by the Spanish kind of blending with the Aztecs and the Mayans, because they worship at the same altar and they're able to intermarry, right? So the first Catholic state in America is really Florida. So Florida is kind of separate from the rest of the Union, where there was no slavery in Florida. Like black people were free in Florida. But what you have in the colonies is this automatic, especially with the transatlantic slave trade going on, the Protestant churches that get set up are very ethnocentric. Like they're very white, and even though they're teaching their slaves Christianity, so you do have a lot of black Christians at this time, they're not at the same church as their white masters. It's a very separate thing. So there's almost this inherent racism built into Protestantism that isn't there in Catholicism, because when you worship at the same altar, that's the whole idea behind Paul saying there's no Jew nor Greek or, like Gentile. Like once you are in the body of Christ, you're no longer separated by this dividing wall of hostility that was once there.
Germany, the source of Father Martin Luther, Switzerland, John Calvin, England, King Henry VIII, Knox, Zwingli. These are uber white. These countries are so white they're translucent, and so the Puritan descendants who arrived on Plymouth Rock and they came over, they transplanted their white Christianity into the colonies. And I would like to know about you. You mentioned the slaves who were evangelized by their owners. I would like to know how many of these ethnically balkanized Protestant churches, like the AMA, there's a whole bunch of Pentecostal churches, which are north of 90% Black only congregants, right? I wonder if their baptism, if you not the family lineage, but the spiritual lineage of how they became Christians, is rooted originally in their forebears being slaves. I'd like to know that because there are some predominantly Black Catholic parishes, but that's less skin color than culture, because you also have in every city a German parish, a Filipino parish, the Poles and so on.
Yeah, I tend to side with E. Michael Jones on this question, where I don't view white people as a race. I really don't. I view you have Italian culture, you have German culture. Then even like in Europe, you have, even within Germany, there's like microcultures within the culture. Like, so I don't, I don't consider myself the same as a German. Like, even, well, it's kind of weird because in America we intermarry. Like my wife was German Irish and I'm an Italian and I married her, so it kind of does get washed away a little bit in America. I wonder if part of the migrant influx that we're dealing with and that Europe is dealing with has to do with the guilt. Like, they probably have some kind of white guilt from this whole situation we're talking about, where they were so harsh on separation of race in the early days of America's founding that now there's this guilt about it. So they're trying to have this multicultural democracy to make up for the early onset racism that the country was founded with.
Almost like reverse pride.
Yeah.
Embarrassment at your own culture.
Yeah.
And how can you, speaking of guilt about the institutions and the culture and the language and all the traditions that you had just by the accidents of your birth, how to explain the non-response in that beautiful church in Switzerland to the 17-year-old Francis migrant?
Yeah, let's bring this up.
Who takes the clothes off the Blessed Virgin Mary statue, puts the crown on his ugly head, and just kind of parades around like a jackass. And there's someone there videotaping it, but doing nothing. And on Instagram and on X, you have a lot of people weighing in. Try this in Poland. Try this in Croatia.
Hang on, let me. I want to see if
it's
I
worth
can
watching.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching. If you guys didn't see this, I originally, when I saw this, my response was, I would be in prison, and this guy would be in the hospital. I don't understand how the people just stood by and did nothing with this. Okay, let me just see if I can bring this up.
Passive. Sorry that you're doing this. And here's the thing, just before you intro it, so many of our Catholic clergy are experts in expressing sorrow. With sorrowful hearts, we feel such sorrow. No one's supplying any outrage. You want to roll the clip?
Yeah, let's see. So let's put the sound on.
Oh là là. Voilà, ông cha đến rồi,
Okay, so migrant strips the clothes. Okay, 17-year-old Afghan migrant strips the clothes from a statue of the Virgin Mary. He then steals Mary's crown before parading it around Einsiedeln Abbey Church in Switzerland. We must deport those who do not respect Western culture or Western values, or they will destroy the West from within. This was such a, I'm so tired of men standing around when things like this happen. I caused like an uproar on Twitter when I said, because a Protestant posted a picture of a smashed Virgin Mary statue, and I said, if somebody did that in front of me intentionally, I would punch them in the face. Like that's a blatant disrespect on a level where I would have to take a swing at them and knock their teeth out.
Mm-hmm. Look at his body language, this kid. He knows he's totally safe.
Yeah.
He's super casual.
It's hard to see on this. Let me see. Let's see if I can expand it. I wonder.
Faut appeler la police.
Polizei.
Audio, but
yeah, he says Polizei. See, the police have no duty in any country to prevent crime. Cops are too late. This is another reason why we have a Second Amendment.
Yeah, it's actually it's just there was an article recently in, I think it was Arizona, where the police were saying people should stay vigilant because there's been an uptick in arsons at Catholic churches.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, we saw this in Canada. You're from Canada. Mm-hmm. When they do the whole indigenous graves hoax, and then people go on these rampages and they start throwing matches in churches. They burn down. Like, we still never found out the story behind Notre Dame. Like,
no, and journalists are curiously incurious about it.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, and it's of a piece, Anthony. This is targeting of Catholics, and Protestants should understand that an attack on Catholicism and Catholic churches and institutions is an attack on Christianity. They're implicated in the hatred unleashed against us.
I have one other I wanted to actually talk to you about. I want to get your opinion on this. Let me see. Let me bring this up.
I'll bet you miss Rob today now. See?
No, I've been learning. I've been doing better. So let me see if I can bring this up. Let me see. Where am I? Let me see how that looks on your end. No, it's not coming.
I see all the purchases of ABBA greatest hits albums.
Wait, I got to do this like this. Hang on. I got to go share screen and then. Sorry, guys. I am not Rob. Okay, right.
You guys know the Jeopardy theme song. That would be a good point. By the way, when people are as you're setting that up, the response to Ed Maza and my conference, Catholics in the Storm, is through the roof. People from multiple countries are signing up. We have an early bird special, by the way, that goes away at the end of November. Just look up Catholics in the Storm conference and you'll get there.
Is it just you and Dr. Maza doing that, or you have other speakers?
No, it's the two of us. We do 8 presentations together. We cover the anti-pope evidence from 2 different perspectives, and pretty much soup to nuts. Sacred tradition for the rest of us, Catholic corruption and the divine foundation of the church, the making sense of suffering, the 4 Marian dogmas, why the Crusades were awesome and why the Inquisition wasn't so bad. And then we have a kind of a wrap-up session where we go back and forth and kind of talk through our differences about the same finish line, about Bergoglio never having been the Pope. But the focus is really not that. The focus is helping Catholics to finish the following sentence with greater confidence. I'm Catholic because John Paul II and Pope Benedict are no longer in Rome. And we're kind of in the wild, wild west as Catholics. And I have a heart for helping Catholics persevere while our Lord seems to be taking a power nap in the boat. That's why the title is that, Catholics in the Storm. So just look up Catholics in the Storm, my name, or conference, and it'll be your first hit. We'd love to have
All right. So let me just okay. So many anti-Catholic agitators have used this image to attack the church and say our mass is unserious or clown mass, but none of them know the actual reason this priest wears a luchador mask at the altar. Mm-hmm. This is Father Sergio Gutierrez Benitez, and he's actually a real-life luchador who goes by Fray Tormenta in the ring on Friar Storm. In the ring, he's a badass, blah, 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 blah. And this is the image.
Did you see my response, Anthony?
No.
I did a 10-point refutation. This guy, Ted, is another fake name coward who's trying to gaslight people who have a problem with this. Ironically, we're cowards and idiots if we say one word. This is narcissistic liturgical abuse.
Insane.
This isn't, by the way, he's not a real luchador. He was born in the 30s, so give me a break. Yeah. This is me. And he's got the Novus Ordo show-off move with one hand, another liturgical abuse. I mean, isn't the Mass enough without stupid gimmicks?
Well, this gets down to the new Mayan rite mass. This gets down to like this fake enculturation. Nothing like, look, so you were talking about like, okay, so you have the Yuletide, you have the Christmas tree. These are kind of like pagan remnants that we baptized, right? And we brought into Catholicism, kind of universalized it. Now, this is when you're spreading Christianity into a culture, and you don't want to rip a culture away from everything it knew, right? So you take the elements that are kind of that can be baptized, and you baptize. So a culture that would celebrate the winter solstice, you say, okay, now look, we are celebrating the birth of Christ at this time. So you change the feast from the winter solstice and you baptize it, you make it Christmas. You do all these different things when you're going into a culture that has never experienced Christianity. When you're talking about the Mayan rite, this is a country that was already evangelized. This is a post-Christian culture. This is not a culture where you're going in for the first time and evangelizing pagans. What it winds up becoming is a gimmick. It's a gimmick that they're doing, just like this guy wearing this mask. It's a complete gimmick. It has nothing to do with actual enculturation, and it has more to do with what do they call it? Not enculturation. It's syncretism.
Syncretism, yeah.
More syncretism than enculturation.
Yeah, baptizing old paganism into the Catholic sacramental system and giving things a Christian meaning is going forward. This Mayan mass, which is basically Pachamama rite liturgical, is going backwards. This is apostasy. Yeah. This is symbolic of the loss of faith around the world, to revert to pre-Christian themes that have already been incorporated, that have already been baptized. I would love to hear from Mexican Orthodox Catholics who have Mayan family ancestry and get their take, because I'll bet they're not happy with their culture being used as a politically correct mascot. That's my bet.
Yeah, I saw that guy posted that, and I refrained from commenting on it just because I didn't feel like getting in that squabble. I thought it was so blatantly, obviously silly, and I saw people just like the approach there was. I was like, what do you like? Anything where the focus gets turned from the Eucharist and Christ to the priest is a problem.
This is why the traditional Latin Mass does not have the priest, quote, with his back to us. He's like a pilot flying the plane straight. He's leading us with and to the Father. The priest who celebrates the traditional Latin Mass is not that important. He doesn't have to have a charming, witty anecdote at the opening prayer. He doesn't have to make a sports reference during his homily. He's there as a messenger. He's not there as an editor. He's not there as an innovator. So say the red, do the black. You only have one job.
My first exposure to an ad orientem mass was very early on in my conversion. I got sent on a Cursillo. And
how was it for you? How was the Cursillo for you?
You're not supposed to talk about it. I hated it.
Oh, you did?
I hated it.
Is this like this is the Fight Club of Anthony's background?
You're not supposed to talk about Cursillo. It's like this thing, like you're not supposed to talk about it, because here's what it is. It actually is good for someone who I would say somebody who's does not have the faith but is seeking. So like if you know somebody that's like very early on and like they're curious about Catholicism,
or they've been away for years and they're kind of looking to darken the doors of the church again.
It's perfect for someone like that, right? Where I had converted, like I had reverted at this point, and I was probably about 8 months into my reversion. I'm digging into church fathers at this point. I'm doing like deep biblical research. Like I'm learning about my faith. Like I have a pretty good knowledge of my faith at this point. And I get sent on this thing, and it's a very charismatic centered type of ordeal. But the priest that celebrated mass gave us a really good explanation of ad orientem. And he goes, look, you can't look at it like I have my back to you. What I'm doing right now is I'm leading you guys into battle. And if I'm leading you into battle, I can't be facing you. We're all heading towards God right now. We're all marching towards heaven. And he kind of just explained it like that. And I was like, wait, why don't we do this everywhere? Like I'd never even heard of the Latin Mass at this point. Nothing, And I'm like, wait, why don't we do this at every mass? It made just made perfect sense to me. Then the idea of having the Latin mass also made perfect sense to me before I'd ever attended one, because I'm like, well, if you're in Germany and you go to mass, like if you grow up learning this universal church language, no matter where you go to mass, you're going to fit right in and understand what's going on where you are in the mass. Like, it seems such an awesome thing to me for the church to have this universal language that nobody else speaks anywhere else in the world. So the Cursillo is it was a very emotional experience, and I just was like, I wasn't feeling it at that point. Like, I wanted to go somewhere that I wanted to go on like a silent retreat and like learn stuff. That was what I should have gone to at that time. And then at the end, the guys who were hosting it started like reading from Richard Rohr and talking about like,
but why?
I'm like,
but why, Richard?
It's funny. Like 8 months into my conversion, I knew there was red flags with that guy. I'm like, why are they talking about? Because it was like Eckhart Tolle type stuff.
Totally.
I'm like, what am I even involved in here? So yeah, I would say, I don't know. Look, it might have just been my local chapter. I don't know what they're like universally.
My parents stayed married because of Cursillo. So my experience growing up in that movement was good. I didn't really see the charismatic renewal element, but it's definitely for beginners. Cursillo, Spanish for short course. It's got papal, the last 6 popes have strongly endorsed Cursillo, but you have to be discerning, and it depends on the rector. If you got someone who's a Dick Rohr fan, you're going to have heterodox problems.
Yeah, look, there was a couple of guys that had gone to this, and they wound up being on fire for their faith after, you know. It just I wasn't there like that.
Well, plus you don't have any feelings, Anthony. So I think that's
I'm actually overly sentimental, so it should have worked on me, but I think I was in the wrong place spiritually at the time. It just wasn't for me. And like I said, it also could have been a very local thing. But my parents also they did like that what was it? Not Marriage Encounter. I think they did Marriage Encounter, and then they did Marriage Alive or something. What were the it was Marriage Encounter, I think.
Marriage Encounter, that's a worldwide thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember like my parents coming home, my mom was like floating on cloud 9. And my dad like went along with it for a little while. And then like, I remember it was right around when I started going into work with him. I was like 17 years old or something. And he's like, she got me writing freaking love letters every freaking day. I don't know what the hell is it. Like, he made me laugh hard on the way home from work one day. My mom was like writing him love letters, leaving him by the coffee pot for him in the morning. He's like, my dad's not like an overly sentimental guy like that, you know?
That reminds me of the guy who's been married to his wife for 50 years. She's always complaining that he never tells her that he loves her. And he says, look, I told you the day I married you that I loved you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. Sounds like your dad.
Oh, man.
That's great.
Some of the what do you think about Francis changing the funeral rite? Did you see that story?
I did. Yeah. This is a sub-theme of the 2014 book by Thomas Harris that I think they dropped from the movie Conclave, starring Stanley Tucci and Ralph Fiennes, the one where the Pope that's elected as a tranny, you know, this new movie.
Yeah, I heard about this.
We're going to be meeting with Andrea Cianci in Rome. He's the expert on the evidence of the Ratzinger Code, the things that the Holy Father said from February 2016 until his death 2 years ago. And he has a speculative theory. Andrea is very careful to hew closely to the evidence, but he thinks there is a chance. But let me couch the chance, what follows that with this. I think you and I have talked before, Ant, about the strange feature of Francis's travels. John Paul II, when he was Pope, went back to Poland, I think 8 or 9 times. Benedict went back to his native Germany 3 times. Well, Bergoglio has been to Chile, Uruguay. He's been to Brazil twice. He's been to Peru. He's been to Ecuador. Never to Argentina. And he never will. Ask yourself why that is. He keeps making little hints. It's kind of in the word. No, it's not. He can't go back. And I think the reason he can't go back is because of a case involving a celebrity priest who, quote, worked with street boys named Father Julio Grassi. This guy's a true you-know-what-ophile. He's in jail now for a long, long time. And he was protected by the then Cardinal Archbishop of Buenos Aires. This guy, the Cardinal Archbishop, now living in Rome, created a 2,000-word dossier by his team of attorneys to undermine the testimony of the victims of Julio Grassi, whom he says Cardinal Bergoglio held my hand all along. So I think he'd be indicted at the airport if he dared go back. In addition to bad PR.
You think Argentina would see? I just assumed he just was not well liked there. I didn't think it was for, and I don't know if they would arrest the reigning pope.
Why wouldn't they? If he's guilty of capital crime, why couldn't they? He can run the church from jail.
Some kind of diplomatic immunity issues there, I think.
Well, no? I mean, okay, well, we're still left with the naked fact that he's never gone back. So the dice has been rolled, and he's not risked it. You know what I mean?
What is the story the Pillar's been working on with what the heck is it?
By the way, while you're looking for that, there are 2 books that verify your thesis about him not being well liked. One is by the late George Neumeyer, called The Political Pope, and the other one is by E. Michael Jones, whom you referenced earlier. Mike wrote a book called The Pope Francis in Context, and not well beloved. It's not like they're proud of their local boy and made good, to say the least.
It's the Principi case. The Principi case, or what could be called the Panapara case, since it is now principally about how the Pope's chief of staff tried to reinstate a twice convicted and laicized abuser of minors. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to rehearse the details again. If you're reading this, let me see. Okay, what we know about Principi case and why it's a scandal. 1 month after an extraordinary attempt from the Pope's chief of staff to reinstate the laicized abuser, questions remain about who in the Vatican did what in the case of Alberto Ariel Principi. Despite those questions, the Holy See has offered no clear answers on why an order was issued by Sostituto Archbishop Edgar Panapara, which aimed to restore the twice convicted abuser to the clerical state, or how the head of dicastery for the doctrine of the faith's disciplinary section was able to countermand the order. The known facts about the sequence of events and of the legal processes which govern the handling of such cases all seemingly point to an extra legal attempt by a senior Vatican figure to overturn his conviction for, I mean, you're talking about kids. You're not talking about, this is minors that this guy did this to. Mm-hmm. You also have the Zanchetta case. You had, what was the bishop in South America? There was one like this.
Batista Ricci, the guy found with the rent boy in the elevator, who was kicked upstairs to be the second in charge of the Vatican Bank. Bergoglio has a history of defending and promoting homosexual predators and schmedophiles. This is a proven, established track record. So it's not, the Prada story is not that, it's not that surprising. And remember, just like with Luce or Luce, whatever we're supposed to call it, people, this is all Bergoglio. He's the head of the river here. Nothing that goes global like that hits the news wires was not previously authorized by him.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things I want to touch on real quick. So, first of all, let's just jump into the into this with the actual what's it called? The actual funeral, right? So the ascertainment of death will no longer take place in a room of the deceased, but in a chapel, and his mortal remains will be placed immediately inside the coffin.
Yep.
The faithful will be able to venerate the Pope's body inside the open coffin, but the tradition of having 3 coffins of cypress, lead, and oak has been eliminated. So they changed. So Francis started doing this with Benedict's funeral, and we were all like, "What is this guy doing?" It's like,
well, Benedict's body was thrown into a white utility van. What happened to Benedict's body in his funeral? It was almost a dress rehearsal for the abuse that Cardinal Pell's body suffered, including a broken nose.
Yeah.
Before or after death, we're not sure.
We talked about that when you were on. That was
I wasn't aware that the funeral rites changes involved the public veneration of his mortal remains. I thought that was going to be eliminated altogether. So anyway, I don't know. I haven't seen the details, but he's a tinkerer. Everything he has to tinker with everything, including the deposit of faith.
It's just bizarre to me that if you ask me, part of the way, if you were actually concerned with evangelization, which he's clearly not. I mean, the hierarchy of the church needs to address something that Trump actually did. So if you look at how this election went, Trump took a route where he said, okay, we're going to go to the disenfranchised men. And we're going to go on these male-oriented podcasts, and we're going to go, and because it seemed like a parallel to what's going on in the church with me. Like I feel like the Catholic Church under this hierarchy is like we're under the Kamala campaign. They're just reaching out to women, where they're just trying, like it's this woke church. It's kind of just driving me nuts. And the only bishop I've seen even attempt to address men is Barron, honestly, like having those conversations with Jordan Peterson, things like that. Like he'll talk to Jonathan Peugeot. He's trying to at least have conversations where men are interested in them, whereas the hierarchy seems to just be on this woke bend and thinking that everything, like this whole idea of synodality and bringing women more into it, and every single thing they do seems to repel men further away from the church. To where I mean, who wants to be involved with any of this gay crap? Like, I'm just so done with all of it. And I'm wondering if after Francis, if we'll get a turnaround and a pivot where somebody will get a pope in there that actually says, okay, look, we kind of got to do. I mean, how do you think Trump won the election? Trump won the election by addressing disenfranchised men. Like there's a momentum building among men right now because of the amount of feminism that's been thrown down our throat for the past 50 years. It feels like there's just this welling of momentum building amongst men right now.
Certainly we're seeing the reverse pendulum swing to a certain degree. Well, you know me on the anti-pope thing, that has to be sorted out by the cardinals who were appointed by John Paul II and Pope Benedict. Otherwise, we're just going to kick the can down the avenue and have another anti-pope, even if it's Pope Burke or Pope Sarah. But
so you think if they don't even address this and you think the next pope would be an if Cardinal Sarah gets elected next, if they don't address the Francis question, you think they'll be an invalid pope as well?
100%, because one of the conditions that flow from being an anti-pope is that you can't elevate cardinals validly. That's all null and void. So the red-hatted voters in the conclave now are 60-70% skewed in favor of the Bergoglio clown world. Their votes wouldn't count. That's why it has to be the cardinals validly elevated by his predecessor. And there's, I think, 38 of them still living. And they can do it. This is in the opening chapters of Universi Dominici Gregis, the Apostolic Constitution from 1995, written by John Paul II, almost certainly ghost-written by Cardinal Ratzinger himself. And there's a movement. This evidence movement is in multiple countries now. You're gonna meet Andrea Cianci in Rome 2 weeks from now. It's still bizarre that we're going so soon. But there's a priest in Milan who has a sacred doctorate of theology. His name is Father Giorgio Fade, and he gave a homily on Sunday, October 13th, and he just laid the case out in magnificent, minute detail.
He got laicized, right? Oh, he got.
They're moving. They do this Yosemite Sam super fast kangaroo trial thing, which itself is not valid. Just like the procedures against Archbishop Vigano will never pass muster in front of a canonical trial. He wasn't given time. They just wanted him out. That was all a predetermined decision. Yeah.
So how long? Oh man, this is such a mess. Like that's why I have a hard time jumping fully on board with your thesis. It's like I obviously acknowledge that there's a possibility of it, but it's like, how does something like that get sorted out? Like that's how I just don't know how. Like if you get a Cardinal Sarah in there next, and then they don't address this, like how many anti-popes could you have before it gets addressed? I don't know.
Well, the Avignon papacy crisis lasted 70 years. We're only 2 years into it. This is like last Tuesday on the Catholic Church, Millennium.
Well, how many cardinals have? Because if you notice, when Benedict was still alive, every cardinal Francis elevated went in and saw Benedict. So those could all be valid cardinals, right?
Those could be. That's a good point. I've pointed that out. The cameras that were aimed at the cardinals that went to see Benedict at their consistory elevation, the audio was always turned off. It was an interesting feature of that footage. You could not hear what they said. They were close enough; they could have had sound equipment to pick up the conversations, but they didn't. EWTN's cameras didn't. AC Prensa cameras didn't. Just footage of them,
Going and
like
seeing him.
B-roll with no sound. So that could be. I pray that could be. That's not a question we can answer yet because we're not really sure.
So there's only been one consistory since Benedict passed, right? Or two.
That's a good question.
I think there's only been one consistory.
Benedict
passes in.
But he packed his own pipeline before Benedict died. He had 10 years to do it, and he did.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying they could still be valid cardinals, is what I'm saying. If they all go and see Benedict,
if they were privately elevated by the true Pope, they would be true cardinals and they would be eligible to vote. But the answer to that question is not disclosed to us yet. What they could do, even if that's not the case, they could do what was done at the Council of Sutri about 1,000 years ago. The wiki page on the Council of Sutri is pretty interesting. It was a similar kind of crisis, and you just need a minority of cardinals. It doesn't have to be the full 120 voters. But do they have the spine to do it? Do they have the spine to
Yeah, I don't think they do.
Well, as a Catholic, I know that Jesus Christ is Lord and he has not left us orphans. I know this is going to be worked out, and it is working out. In fact, I think the more the more woke the church goes, the more that reaction that you saw in American politics with men getting off their
the worse it gets, the more it actually culminates in, okay, we need to address this, right? So it's like every time something bad happens, I used to get upset about it. I kind of don't anymore. I kind of like, it's like, all right, let it collapse, like let this stuff fall apart, because these things do need to be addressed.
Yeah, the homo who's now the papal preacher, I'm like, yeah, of course, wonderful. Yeah. Timothy Radcliffe, the former lavender master general of the Dominicans, now has a red hat. How did this happen? I'm like, I'm delighted. It's just pushing and pushing.
Like, okay, so this was always my this guy is 1958 Sede, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that was always kind of, because look, if you actually look into the Sede thesis, like, it's not unreasonable. It's, it's pretty reasonable. Like, and they're pretty consistent in things. But my biggest issue with it was always, how do you right the ship after that, right? So, and we're kind of falling into that with Francis as well, if we go that route too.
The 1958 thesis has in its favor the fact that after John the 23rd, a lot of the wheels did come off of the Universal Church. In 1959, no one anticipated that this elderly former cardinal from Venice was going to call a Universal Council. There was no dogma under attack. There was no crisis to be resolved. It was really not, it wasn't even a sequel to Vatican I. It wasn't like, well, let's go back and finish what was interrupted by the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, because that dealt with infallibility and papal supremacy, the papal states. None of that came up in Vatican II. And communism was never mentioned, let alone condemned, in any of the 16 documents of Vatican II. Why not, when you had cardinals, priests, and laymen in jail from 62 to 65? But their plight was ignored by the fathers. And I'm a spiritual son of Bishop Sheen. I think Bishop Sheen is a saint, but only heaven is perfect. And I think when Bella Dodd, the famous convert from communism to the Catholic faith of her Italian, by the way, childhood, Bishop Sheen told her not to reveal the names of the cardinals that she knew were making decisions in the Vatican. Under obedience, she didn't disclose their names. I think she probably should have said who they were. I think she had a duty to go. I think she had a duty to go public. Yeah,
would have for sure
but
helped.
My problem with we're kind of getting into a Sadie rabbit hole, which I wanted to avoid. But quickly on that, I like evidence. In the community that I found at True North, I teach people that they're not the prosecutor, they're not the judge, they're not the bailiff, they're not the defense attorney. They're the jury. You are a juror in life, and you're always presented with evidence, and you have to weigh the evidence and come to a conclusion. My conclusion of 1958 Sede Vacantism is rooted in the fact that I think Pius XII himself issued a document, I forget the Latin title, where he stipulates that the cardinals that elect a pontiff have to be in continuity with the cardinals, even a cardinal, even a long papal reign, 20 or 30, 40 years. Otherwise, the apostolic succession with respect to the office of Peter is cut if all the cardinals die and there's a crisis that's not sorted out. The fact is, all of the men who voted in 1958 for Cardinal Pacelli, for Cardinal Roncalli, who became John the 23rd, they're all dead. So even if you say that the valid apostolic lineage means that the sacraments are valid, that's not the same thing as the juridical question of the inability to now vote for a pope, because that historical connection with Peter is broken, because all the cardinals that elected John the 23rd in 58 are in fact dead.
What people tell me watch the chat? I'm sorry, I wasn't watching. Am I missing something? I got to ban anybody or something? It's just a mess, all of it.
Well, we have, this is a call to prayer. This is a call to greater fidelity to the deposit of faith. The deposit of faith is the one thing that transcends good popes and bad popes. And that's why Catholics need to learn it. They need to get a certain indispensable minimum, especially men. I'm tired of men that say, I don't read, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Podcasts alone will not get you into the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. The great repository of wisdom is in books. Start small. Start with a short story. Start with a kid's book.
Yeah, one of the things I'm looking forward to is the flight, the 10-hour flight. I can't wait to spend that flight actually digging into our real book. It's, it's like so rare. Bring? You kind of just stuck in a seat for 10 hours. Like, what do I do with this 10 hours?
What are you going to bring? Do you know?
I have a few different options that I'm thinking about, but I want to read something that I can bring to the show. So I'm debating if I'm going to do something on the fathers or church history, or one of the things I was thinking about was doing the 7 ages of the church, Holzhauser's 7 ages of the church, but I don't know if that's too much for me to dig into. Hoping to see if there's like maybe a condensed version of it, because I heard that thing's like a giant tome.
Mm-hmm. So are you into fiction? Do you like novels?
Yeah.
Have you read The Power and the Glory?
I have the audiobook for that. I haven't actually dug into it though. Graham Greene, right?
Graham Greene. Yeah. Interesting story. It was made into a movie by John Ford called The Fugitive, starring Henry Fonda in 1951. It's not very good. They kind of sex up the relationship with the priest and the woman he gets pregnant.
He's like, because I started reading. I know he's like an alcoholic or something, right?
Yeah, he's a whiskey priest, and he knows he's in mortal sin, but he also knows that the sacraments he celebrates while on the lam from the authorities are valid, and he's his true hero. I'm not even. I think the book is so exquisite. It deserves a good remake, a good adaptation.
Yeah.
The reason that, quick sidebar, the reason why Graham Greene was in Mexico for 2 years to write the book and do some research on it was because 20th Century Fox threatened to sue. I think it was the Telegraph, whatever paper he worked for in England. He was threatened to be lawsuited into oblivion because he wrote an article about the sexualization of Shirley Temple, and he was going after the leering adults in these movies where this prepubescent girl is dipsy doodling around in small dresses. And he didn't back down. He didn't apologize. So he left England for 2 years to escape the lawsuit. And that's when he wrote The Power and the Glory. Another good Catholic book is the movie's terrible. I cannot recommend the movie, but Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange will blow your mind.
The book.
It's written
I saw the movie 20 years ago.
Awful. Burgess actually renounced the movie by Kubrick. It's glorified porn. It's totally stupid.
It was horrific.
But the book is written in Nadsat, which is the argot, the slang of the not too distant future. And the book was written in 1963, anticipates the punk rock movement, anticipates violence in the streets, disaffected youth. And Alex is the main character, and he's telling you, the reader, all about his adventures, and he really wants you to sympathize with him. So he's always giving these little asides about how you have to understand, I really had no choice given the circumstances, blah, blah, blah. So it takes a few pages to get into the meaning of his slang, and a lot of the words are rooted in Russian. But the central premise or the question that Anthony Burgess raises is, can you have a human being who's a Christian if they're forced to make choices toward virtue? In other words, if you can't choose hell, is Christian life even possible? So
Yeah.
Alex is captured and he's subjected to Ludovico's technique, which is this fluid they put in his bloodstream where they force his eyes open and they make him watch like Japanese torture films so that he identifies the nausea to the point of heart attack that this drug. And so now when the technique is over, 21 days later, he's all brainwashed. Even a bad thought will produce such
it makes him
dread
feel
that
nauseous and
he has to
throw up.
feel something good, like letting a fly go free. So yeah, I think that's a great book, Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe even doing The Destruction of Cities, E. Michael Jones's book, and then because I would love to get E. Michael Jones on, but not for the JQ. Because everybody just expects you're going to do the JQ with E. Michael Jones, but E. Michael Jones is such a brilliant thinker, and I would love to even. I mean, everything. I read that years ago. I read Degenerate Moderns. Degenerate Moderns is such a good. If you guys never read that book, it is so freaking good. I read Logos Rising, and then I never read the follow-up to Logos Rising, which was the Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, and I never read the narrative.
The other way around. The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit came out in 2012.
Oh, before?
Yeah, no, it's 12 years old now. Yeah, Logos Rising is only from 2 years ago. He reissued it with a couple of amendments, but that came out in 2012.
Oh, okay. I had the order off.
Living Machines is a fascinating book. He's really, he's just such a virtuoso wordsmith, and the research that he does. Living Machines is about ugly architecture and how we got here.
That's what I should read then, because I want there's a couple of things so he talks about like Bauhaus architecture and things like that, right? Like I kind of think the destruction of cities and architecture is all connected, right? Like
sure.
Like there's something about them disconnecting us from when they so I watched this documentary on New York, and it goes from the early 1600s when the Dutch settled New York. And it takes you from New York being like this little trading post in the New World, and it takes you through the whole history of New York. And New York is this unbelievable city throughout the early Americas. And then all of a sudden you get Robert Moses comes in the 1950s when the automobile is invented, and he completely destroys the city in ways you can't imagine. Like highways, he rips every freaking neighborhood you can imagine apart. Like all these beautiful Italian neighborhoods. Sorry, highway coming through here, eminent domain, get the hell out. He moves all the black people up into ghettos, and he puts them in these like the tenement buildings. What are they called? Projects. Puts them in project buildings, right? But this idea of separating us from the world we live in by putting us up 100 stories up, 20 stories up. Now you're disconnected from the ground you live in. You have no connection. That's when you start getting people treating the city like crap, littering on the floor, treating it like crap. You had these beautiful Catholic communities formed around parishes where you'd have your cousins, your second cousins, your grandmother, your aunts, your uncles, everybody living in this community. Now they put this highway through it, and now you can move out to the suburbs, and it rips the city apart, and now your family is completely separated. Now you got to drive a half an hour to go see your parents. Now it destroyed the cohesion of our entire society.
That is the slaughter of cities. And he goes into that in Living Machines. It all came from one man in Germany. Of course, all bad ideas come from Germany. His name is Walter Gropius. He's the father of Bauhaus architecture. And it all came online in America after World War II with the construction of the standard American suburb with its flat roofed homes that does most. You go to one thing you'll notice in Italy is that churches in particular, but even public buildings, when you regard them, you involuntarily do this. You look up. All the the pointers, the finesses of the architecture draw your eyes upward. And even like garbage can disposal, like a garbage can in a public park. In America, it's like an oil drum with a little flip flop, like a McDonald's garbage thing. In Italy, it's wrought iron, it's wood, it's clean. because the architect who designed it knew that the end user was a baptized adopted son or daughter of the God of the universe,
Yeah.
and therefore great dignity. So don't make something purely functional. Make it beautiful and functional.
Yeah, there's something about the symbolism of the highest point is the thing that's most important to you, right? So like all these medieval cities or even villages and towns, they'd all have the church or the cathedral in the center. That would be the center, and things would build around them and they'd work their way outward, right? Then you come into a place like New York City, and the highest thing is the World Trade Center. Right. So it's almost like that's the idol for
that's the
us
idol.
as that's the thing that's the most important to us is money, right? And there was something very symbolic about the Trade Center being taken down that I don't know, man. I think Jonathan Kahn, that Messianic Jew, did a whole series on like the towers coming down, and then they plant sycamore trees, and he goes through scripture about how like when the temple was torn down, they used, I don't know, it was a pretty interesting thing, but it's always, you got to take it with a grain of salt because it's coming from a Protestant, but it was a pretty interesting thesis that he came up with. And then his last book was actually about like the return of the gods, which I do think is I think he has a very solid thesis with the return of these ancient gods popping up now.
Here's a guest for you. He's going to be on my show after Christmas. His name's John Davidson. It's called Pagan America. He's a Catholic convert. He writes for the Federalist. Very, very good book. Check out John Davidson's Pagan America. Basically, if we don't turn around, the old gods are returning. It's paganism of old. And
100%.
I got your book, Anthony.
What book?
I know the book I'm going to recommend that you read on the plane.
What is it?
It's not long. It reads like it was written last Tuesday for our times. It's by Bishop Sheen. It's called Old Errors, New Labels.
Okay.
Check it out.
I'll always read a Sheen
Believe
book.
me, it's magnificent. It's a lesser known, I think it's one of his best books, along with Peace of Soul and his magnum opus, Life of Christ.
There's Life of Christ I've read. I read that recently, actually.
There's a chapter in it on art and architecture and the meaning of the design of medieval towns. As you'll see in Italy, the center point, if you fly over at 1,000 feet, the center point of every village is the church, and the center point of the church inside is the Eucharist. So everything.
So okay, so I'm actually also thinking about reading Dante because we're going to Florence.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of in Dante. He talks about Florence in a way where he even talks about the church he grew up in and the baptistry in the church he was in.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. There's a couple of options, but I know I got a 10-hour plane ride, and I am. I don't read, I listen. Well, I do love a good audiobook because I spend so much time driving. So a lot of the things I do read tend to be audiobooks just because that's the best way for me to consume them. But on a plane, I'll be able to read.
Yeah. We have a couple of hours of downtime, but trust me, you're going to be so buzzing with the excitement of being in Italy. There's really now 4 hours of reading. That's not going to happen.
No, I'm just the plane strictly. I'm thinking, but I'm also hoping I get inspiration from being in Italy itself. You know, like just being in Italy and seeing some of these things. Because then I'm like, all right, maybe I should read something on Padre Pio. We're going to San Giovanni Rotondo. Like, I kind of want to go to San Giovanni Rotondo, like in love with Padre Pio on my way there, you know?
You know, the best, it's not exactly short, but if you really love Padre Pio, I recommend, for my money, the best biography of him is by a Lutheran priest named C. Bernard Ruffin, Ruffin.
A Lutheran priest wrote the best biography on him?
Yep. He really understands the sacraments. It's very, very detailed. He goes through the persecution that Padre Pio had at the hands of course, his superiors.
Yeah.
And a lot of anecdotes of people who knew him, correspondence.
And he doesn't convert?
I don't know what happened to Ruffin. I'm not sure. It's odd. It's like Mark Twain. Right? Warmed over, lapsed Protestant agnostic, spends 12 years sailing back and forth to Orleans, France to write what he considered his best book, Joan of Arc. How do you explain these attractions like this? I don't know if there's any evidence.
Did you ever read Chesterton's book on St. Francis?
No, I never did. His Aquinas, but not Francis.
It's so good. It's like because Chesterton's so witty and like the little quips he comes up with, even just like, he's like, you know, St. Francis reflects our Lord, but not, man, he has these little phrases that he uses throughout the whole thing. It's one of, It was one of the first books I read after my reversion. It was such a good read, man.
Yeah, Chesterton rescues him from the lightweight,
hippie,
skinny guy sitting in the bird bath.
the brother son
Brother,
sister
son,
moon
sister moon,
version of him. Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say unto you about that? Chesterton, it'll come to me.
Well, let's talk about books. In reality, he's taught to people asleep and watch a movie. Yeah, man, that's part of the problem with the digital age. It's like, even when I read a book now, especially if it's on Kindle or something, and I read something, if I see like a good quote, it's like, oh, let me post this quote to Twitter. It's like that urge to just not just sit and bask in the book itself, you know.
I know what I was going to say. A close friend of Sheen's, whom Sheen credits in his last book, which is called Treasure and Clay, published posthumously. It's Sheen's great. It's the only autobiography he ever wrote, Treasure and Clay. But he credits G.K. Chesterton as a writing mentor. They were good friends, and you can see a lot of the use of paradox and very lean prose in the way Sheen wrote and the way Chesterton wrote. Sheen sailed to England in 1936 to be at Chesterton's funeral. That's how close they were.
I didn't know that. Yeah, my favorite Chesterton book is Everlasting Man.
Great book.
Everlasting Man. He's got a couple of little sayings in that one too, where it's just like alone amongst the animals. Like I can't remember. I wish I had like one of those memories. But he talks about a drink, right?
Your summary of Chesterton is awesome.
All right, so he talks about a drink.
Always, no wait, never.
He talks about a drink, and he's like, man, nothing could ever come up with something as exquisite as a cocktail and as evil as a drunk, or something along those lines. Like it's not. I wish I could remember what he said, but he just has these little things that just make you think. It's like, yeah, man, there's something amazing about being human, where it's a single cocktail is a beautiful thing, but as soon as you start that second and third, it becomes a problem. You become a drunk.
Yeah. You mentioned Ruffin, and did he become a Catholic because he wrote about Padre Pio? One of the secrets of the Catholic literary world is that one book that's considered by many to be the masterpiece of apologetics for Catholicism is Orthodoxy by Chesterton. Now, Chesterton wrote that while he was
as a Protestant.
Anglican. Yeah, he stayed Protestant for 12 years after. Like, hey, GK, aren't you convinced by your own arguments?
Protestantism was still, Anglicanism was still had a lot of Catholic flavor to it back then. Like that's why it's nothing like the Anglicanism we see today. So I think that's kind of why C.S. Lewis maybe didn't leave, you know, because I think C.S. Lewis, I mean, even his views on purgatory are very Catholic. Like he had some very Catholic ideas, C.S. Lewis.
You know what Ulster is?
No.
Ulster is a city in Northern Ireland, and it's a hub of Orangemen, vicious anti-Catholic Protestant controversialists.
Yeah,
Ulster. So after C.S. Lewis died, Tolkien, who survived him, obviously, was asked, "So why didn't your friend Jack, that was his nickname, why didn't Jack become a Catholic?" And the only response that Tolkien gave was, he had ulterior motives. That's good. That's good. So the point is, you have to cooperate with grace. Conversion to the faith is not about arguments. It's never 1 or 2 or 5 apologetics arguments. It's a cooperation with grace. And his wife Frances was not Catholic, and he was a very, very loving husband. I can't find the origin of this quote, but he is said to have been asked about marriage and whether if he agreed with reincarnation, what would he like to come back as? And he said, my wife's second husband.
That's a good answer.
It's awesome. Yeah.
What do you think of the state of Catholic apologetics right now?
It's most apologetics organizations and apologists are in a state of toxic Ecclesial Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
They don't want to, they're like in an abusive alcoholic home, and they don't want to talk about the drinker and the drinking. They just want to double and triple down on all the verities that predate what happened in March 2013. They don't want
they want to act like it's still Benedict's papacy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You can't domesticate this guy. That's the fun part for me watching it all. You can't, some try, but you can't square the circle. So I think it's Ecclesial Stockholm syndrome. And those who say public thoughts that are thought silently by all are made into a pariah because of mimesis. We've talked about mimesis before, which is why I don't identify as a conservative. I don't want to be called conservative. If you want to call me anything, call me based. I'm just Catholic with no adjectives. I want to live my life as a juror weighing evidence and not always be looking over my shoulder. Does my tribe agree? If I stake out this position, will I lose a speaking gig, or will an editor reject my piece? I don't care about any of that. I really just care about right, wrong, true, false. And when you do that, it's just, you're so much happier. You don't, the truth is simple. You don't have to memorize it.
Somebody had asked me on Twitter, like, is the priest that's going on the pilgrimage with you going to say Francis's name in the canon? I'm like, yeah, obviously. Like, what are you talking about?
Doesn't
like, what
invalidate the mass?
I'm like, he's like, well, what does Patrick think of that? I'm like, well, Patrick, first off, he's organizing a pilgrimage that he knows not everybody agrees with his thesis. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think we're going on this anti-pope pilgrimage or something? Like, people are so dumb. It's like,
Bergoglio with a line through it. That's our pilgrim tag. No. Those are controversialists. They just want to change the topic. This is why the word "sede" gets thrown around just to change the subject. It's a red herring.
Yeah, I think current look, man, I'll read an article by George Weigel, and I'm like, this guy still thinks Pope John Paul II is the Pope. He is stuck in 1999. This guy.
It's the mindset of the 80s and 90s. Yeah. After a bunch of people fled my Hope is Fuel conference, some of the people who said, sign me up, put me in, coach, was a priest of all places, a priest of Opus Dei. I want to give him credit. His name is Father Jeffrey Langan, Langan. Father Jeffrey's endorsement is next to mine on the back cover of Logos Rising. So he appreciates E. Michael Jones. And he's the Catholic chaplain at a little place called Harvard University. And his talk inside Hope is Fuel is so great because it's just what you said. So many Catholics who teach the faith or are sort of Catholic adjacent as journalists, as people like George Weigel are, they're operating with 1980s categories.
Yeah.
And everything's changed beneath their feet. You can't operate with those categories.
Yeah, I watched Jonathan Peugeot talked about the double symbolism of the cross, right? So the double symbolism of the upside down cross. So the one symbol of, like, when you go to my parish, St. Matthew's, it has all of the coats of arms of, it has like St. Andrew, St. Peter. So St. Andrew is, it's an X basically.
Yeah.
St. Andrew's cross. St. Peter is an upside down cross. And he talks about the symbolism of, like, the double symbolism of that. So when Peter goes to his death and he's willingly crucified upside down because it's an act of humility, he doesn't feel he's worthy to be crucified as Christ was, and he goes willingly to his death. So he goes and gets crucified upside down. It's one of the most beautiful symbols in the world, right? It's Peter renouncing his own will and obeying the will of Christ. But the other symbol of it is Satanists will use it, right? Mm-hmm. And there's something about the upside down cross where if Peter is not doing the will of Christ, but it kind of links to when Peter makes his confession and he says, "Thou art the Christ," and then that's where you get the whole "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." And then 2 sentences later, Jesus says, "I will be brought to Jerusalem to be crucified." And Peter says, "No, Lord, we will not let this happen." And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." Right. So now Peter's thinking as men think. So what you're seeing in the person of Peter is this. There's 2 ways it could happen. It could be Peter, when he's acting on behalf of the will of God, that upside down cross is actually this act of humility and everything is done right. But when Peter takes his will upon himself, that upside down cross, it's like a man-centered version of Christianity. You're not thinking as I do, Peter, you're thinking as man does. And that's kind of what we're going through right now, is this man-centered version of Christianity, because Peter is taking his own will upon him and not doing the will of the Father. I mean, I tried to summarize it But
Yeah, it's all humanistic. It's Masonic. It's this world only. And for Peter to request or allow himself to be crucified upside down is the absolute terminus opposite of I do not know the man.
yeah.
Right? That's such a great character arc. Sheen, by the way, has a beautiful reflection on our Lord's triple denial, because he notes that he was warming himself by a fire. So here he's being looked at by the light of the world, but he prefers the created fire of this world, and he doesn't want the opinions of this young maiden to spread. He's concerned about mimesis. This young maiden, young is probably code for attractive. He wants to shut her down. I do not know the man. Finally, he's drawing curses upon himself. Then he hears the cock crow, and then he sees Jesus look at him with love, and he's brutalized. I mean, he's so lacerated by that, and he sheds tears over it, but he repents. And then after the resurrection, he appears on the lake, and now
By a
Peter's
fire
different.
once
By a
again.
fire. By a
Once
fire.
again, and 3 times Christ says, Peter, do you love me?
Peter, do you love me? So Peter has a chance to say it 3 times, to totally heal the 3 denials. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, and that actually will play out in our own reality, right? So if you're seeing that story of Peter, the denial, what we're going through right now is kind of that period of denial. You're seeing Peter in his denial phase, but there will be a restoration of the papacy once again. Like there's going to be, we don't know how it's going to happen, but right now you have this upside down cross where it's a very man-centered version of Peter, and he's more concerned about mimesis and he's worried about the young woman. But there will be that moment where Peter is on the lake again, sitting by the fire, and and the papacy will be restored again. I have no doubt in my mind that will happen.
This is if you're interested in storytelling, there's a book by a guy, may he rest in peace, named Blake Snyder. It's called Save the Cat, and it's a very simple description of story structure regarding successful Hollywood movies, of the plot points that really have to be there for the story to work. And right now we're kind of in the whiff of death movement. We're in the moment where we need a hero, we need a vicar of Christ to speak up with this crazy, the upside down clown world, with trans, all the ideologies that are ruining everything, with the whole woke mind virus. But what do we get? We get a woke mind virus guy wearing white. It's all very confusing for people. So you have to just persevere, because we're in a story that God himself is telling with our cooperation. We're not orphans. I would rather have Christ asleep with us on the boat than the alternative. Can I hear an amen?
Amen. I see what happened with this election as a foreshadow of what's going to happen in the church. Like I really kind of, I see something about the momentum of we're upon a culture shift right now, man. Like I don't know if people are really paying attention, but I'm not saying woke is done or it's dead, but I see that people don't care about this crap anymore. I see that people don't care about the trans issue anymore. If you look back to 2020 up to 2023, it was like every day all you heard about was some crazy teacher teaching trans ideology. It was all you freaking heard about, and people were losing their minds over this culture war issue. You don't even hear about it anymore. People just don't care. People aren't reporting on it anymore. It's done. People they're done with it.
Yeah.
And I think that somehow, usually the culture is downstream from the church, but I think this time the church is going to be downstream from the culture. Like the culture is shifting so much. Like I think the implications for Europe with this Trump victory are going to be huge. So they desperately wanted Kamala to win. They were sending people over here to try and get, to help Kamala win. They were canvassing for her and stuff. I think Europe right now is so shaken up by Trump winning that it's going to send shockwaves through that continent as well. And there's going to be changes over there as well. I really do think this insane woke order that has been going on for the past 8 or so years is in its death throes right now. It may have one last final battle in it, but it's in its death throes. And I think the church is going to be downstream from that soon.
Isn't it true that Trump has had a more positive effect on the Catholic Church overall than Bergoglio?
Yeah, I would say so.
In separating sheep from goats, in shaking people up. And by the way, I know you're going to get hate. I'm going to get hate letters. Oh, didn't you know he shifted on pro-life and his wife kills babies? I'm not talking about the specific policies.
No, me neither.
I'm
talking
talking
about the
the
cultural shift.
Trump as crowbar, the crowbar that both parties have needed.
Yeah, listen, there's plenty of things I worry about with him. Plenty.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of his foreign policy picks and stuff. I'm not naive to that. I'm more focused on the culture itself and what a Trump presidency means symbolically. Like, it means something. It's people are not afraid to. I mean, even you see the stupid Trump dance they're doing in the end zone, and there's something going on right now where people are like, we're done with this crap, and it goes to this idea of men. I'm telling you, there's going to be a rising of men, and not a toxic masculinity version of men. Like the manosphere stuff, I think that too is on its way out, and that's dying too. I think there's going to be a genuine uprising of like real masculinity soon. And I think it's going to hit the church. I can't see it not. I can't see, like, even the traditional movement and even the people who are conservative Novus Ordo, like those people are desperately seeking out the most traditional liturgy they can find. I really think this luchador type mass and the tambourine, like all that stuff is on its way out, and something new is coming, man.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the springtime we never saw coming, and it's disconnected from the Vatican II promise.
Completely disconnected from the new springtime that the church had.
Yeah. Yep, 100%.
All right, man. Well, unless if you have any other final thoughts before we wrap it up.
Well, if people want to check out True North, just go to patrickhoff.media, click on movement. You can click on pilgrimage. So there's two things you can explore. If you want, just the last there might be someone there listening to Ant and I right now that have always wanted to go to Italy, and they've got some disposable income, and maybe they want to send someone else from December 3rd to December 14th. We can take one more person, 2 maximum. So I'm just going to toss it out there as a crazy thing. If you've got some extra shekels kicking around and you can join us, talk to Ali at that number.
What's the final tally of people coming? How many people are going?
25, I think.
It's so freaking awesome.
Yeah, we run a boutique thing. I'll never run multi-bus things. You don't want to feel like you're a number. And we have a WhatsApp group that to this day, like previous pilgrims still connect, like Bishop Strickland and Father Calvin Robinson and all our pilgrims. Every day we family pictures, and that's a very important follow-up to what we do. Yeah, the people that go are, I mean, I'm expecting by spending 2 weeks together like that, we're going to make some lifelong friendships. We're going to, it's going to be a beautiful experience. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't believe we're going in 12 days. I'm like, I know. And hey, let's do a live stream. Oh, for sure. We'll do a broadcast from there. Yeah. So I have a show tomorrow night, a show Tuesday night, and then it's Thanksgiving. I'm trying to put together an interview with somebody for Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, if I could pull that off. But other than that, like, then we're in Italy. So the next time you'll see me after that will probably be from Italy. Maybe me and Patrick sitting having a glass of wine. We'll just pop on and say hello to everybody. That'd be fun. I got another guest for you, by the way. Who? Check out Zachary Garris, Garris. He's Reformed Presbyterian pastor and an attorney. He has a really good book called Masculine Christianity. And I think Rob is reading that. Oh, good. Yeah, he's really good. He would be a good guest if you want me to. No, wait. I'm thinking Rob's reading one called not the Benedict option. It's called the James Martin option. Oh, the man, not the Benedict option was Rod Dreher. This is the something else option. The Boss Rutan option. It's funny because all these Protestants, he's a Protestant author, but all these Protestants, I see so many Protestants on X with like Crusader imagery, and I follow one guy, he uses Charlemagne. It's like, you guys, Boniface option, that's what it is. It's the Boniface option. Okay, yeah, but it's a very similar. It's a very ironic. Yeah, there's a Protestant guy with Charlemagne. And I'm like, dude, you guys, I love trolling them with not a single Protestant was brave enough to fight in the Crusades. Like, nobody trolls better than Ant.
Not one
Impossible.
Protestant. They were too scared to fight the Crusades. They left it to the Catholics. It's like, oh man. All right,
Yeah,
guys. We're gonna.
Abraham Lincoln said, "You cannot believe everything you read on the internet." It's
Yeah,
true.
you definitely can.
All right. So,
All right.
yep. Check out patrickhoffman.media. And if you want to learn more about Foundations of the Faith, check out Catholics in the Storm with me and Professor Ed Maza. Always a pleasure.
How's the YouTube channel going? Because you got your
Oh
old
my gosh.
YouTube channel back.
Miraculously, I didn't even appeal it. I mean, I did back then 3 years ago. I lost 61,000 subscribers, 490 videos gone into the ether forever, except that I got them all back by God's grace. So that's my main YouTube channel. And I have the newer one that I established has 2,500, but now we're using that for Patrick Hoffman Show clips.
Yeah, that's a great idea to have clips. It's monetized already. You got 2,500 subs. It's I honestly, I know we've both discussed the possibility of Elon being a nefarious character, but if it wasn't for Elon buying X, you'd have never gotten that channel back. I think Elon by himself ended cancel culture by buying X.
Well, okay. I thought we could be friends. No, I think the restoration of channels like mine was more a sign among the decision makers in Silicon Valley that Trump is going to make it, and they didn't want to have to answer questions. This explains the apology tour that Mark Zuckerberg went on.
Yeah.
So but
if you bring it back, I still think Trump doesn't get in if Elon doesn't buy X. Like he changed the conversation. This will be an hour conversation. We gotta.
We'll talk in Italy.
Yeah, we'll talk in Italy. All right, Patrick. I'm looking forward to see you, man. I'll see you in 12 days.
Very good. All right. God bless. Hello to your devoted fans and haters. A blessing upon them too.
Oh, there's plenty of haters. Don't worry. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow night.